Hello and welcome to Talkin Country. I'm your host, Bob Robbins. The fourth episode of Ken Burns' documentary, Country Music, travels between Memphis and Nashville as artists explore rockabilly, race, and new smooth sounds. And we're here to discuss this and more. With me tonight are Roy Cash Jr., a retired U.S. Navy captain, a musician, and the eldest nephew of Johnny Cash, Bobby Crafford. Bobby's the drummer and manager for the legendary Pacers. Lee Anthony. Lee is a former studio owner and record producer of local artists in Arkansas. And John Raney, chief engineer at Raney Recording Studio. And Charles Haymes, a veteran country music journalist and historian. Well, it was about 1953. Something different started hitting the country music scene. Some ladies. Remember Wanda Jackson? Remember Patsy Cline? We're going to talk about them tonight. We're going to talk about Memphis. Memphis ain't a country town. A lot of folks still say that. But it is a river town that has produced so much great music for the country music world and everybody else too. I've got a lot of music talent sitting on these couches tonight, and lots of stuff they can talk about. And fellas, I want to start with you, Roy. Where we go from here? Now you're a heck of a songwriter yourself.
Well, I thank you very much. I wrote a couple that Johnny recorded, and one of them has been recorded by over 80 different people. I still miss someone.
Yes, sir.
I even found out this past weekend that Julie Andrews even recorded my song.
I'll be darned.
But it was recorded mainly by country or country western type folks.
Sitting there next to you is my old buddy Lee, and he has written so many, or not written, but been involved in so many different kinds of recordings and all. Of course, jazz that's your big love, isn't it?
I work with quite a few local artists. Larry Totta Davis was probably one of the well-known blues artists. Thomas East, John Craig, the Loving Sisters, done mostly on, some are well-known or known in other places. Calvin Levy, who did the song Cummins Prison Farm. And I did a country tune with Mouse Hockersmith that was never released. And we picked it before it was ever done by Dottie West and Kenny Rogers, which was Every Time Two Fools Collide. We did the first version of it. Yeah. And another country artist was James Allen.
Right.
He was the first of color, Afro-American singer. He was after Charlie Pride, of course.
Bobby Crawford, you've hit the skins on many a drum.
Yes,
Still
sir.
doing it, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Still doing it.
The Pacers.
64 years.
Lord. Who would have thunk it, huh?
Yeah. Now, I would have, it's amazing. I never thought from when I started that what would happen.
Right.
And where it would end up, and the people I would see, and all around the world I'd get to travel to. It's been great.
As we begin our lives, I don't think we really do think about what is down the road.
No, you don't. And
if we did, we'd be scared to death sometimes.
And I always tell people, it's been at the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
It's just lucky.
Charles Haymes?
That's a good episode, right?
I love this episode.
Yeah, it was just so good seeing all that Sun stuff that I know we have a couple of men here can talk about. And through Brenda Lee, if any gal was born to sing, it was Brenda Lee.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
And then
from a little bitty girl.
Oh, yeah, right on
of course,
up
she never got real big girl, did she?
No. And through the sophistication of the Nashville sound. Brenda Lee is the only female that's been elected to both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Didn't know that.
True. Now, of course, we got to see a lot tonight about our friend Johnny Cash. Man, he went through a bunch of years, didn't he, John?
He sure did. I tell you, honing his craft and then coming up through the ranks. And but I think what always set him apart to me was he was always a great singer, but it was the quality of his writing.
Yeah.
That's what really set him apart, and I think that's what makes it stand the test of time.
We've talked many times on this show about the emotions of country music. He knew how to pull those emotions out of it.
And I'll tell you from family relationship, what he wanted to do was have his music reflect what the country and the culture were doing. Whether it was looking in the prisons and with sympathy and empathy for them, or something like Ragged Old Flag.
Yeah.
He wanted to reflect his music on what was happening in the country.
Or the Native Americans, Ballad of Ira Hayes. Absolutely. Bobby toured with him. You've got to have some Johnny stories.
Yeah, we toured with it, and he never forgot where he was from.
That's right.
And I took my mother and dad. We did a show in Memphis at Ellis Auditorium when a bunch of artists got hurt in a wreck, and he did a big show. I took my mother and dad backstage, and I bet he spent 30 minutes talking with my mother and dad. He was so gracious, and it was that way everywhere we went that I traveled with him. He would just stand in line and talk to people long after the show was over.
And that's the way he was with family. When he was with family, he was not Johnny Cash. He was JR.
Yeah.
And that's what
he was really a family type guy.
Yeah.
I can tell you a quick story. We were in California traveling in 2 cars, and we stopped in this little town. He said, I want to stop in this next town because they got some great ice cream. But said, when you go in, don't say anybody about who we are. So we get out of the car, and one of his guys walks in the door and says, hey, people, here's Johnny Cash.
Well, there's another name came up today, and I knew it would have to at some point in time. And, man, he stood the world on its head, Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah. When I was a teenager, when Johnny was starting, 55, 6, 7, Johnny and Elvis, and one name that was not mentioned today, but I know we all know, Sonny James.
You betcha.
Oh, yeah.
Those three toured together and played the Overton Park Shell a couple of times in the 55, 6, 7 time frame.
Yeah.
And we went up to the Iowa State Fair, and I went with them on that tour.
And the people that missed those days,
oh yeah,
man, they missed a lot of great music.
But Elvis was not big at that time, of course, but boy, was he about to explode.
Yeah, well, that's what Blue Moon of Kentucky
Oh, yeah.
and all those other songs that he had coming out. And, of course, there was Johnny with Hey Porter and
Cry, Cry, Cry.
stuff, and all that stuff.
I think you got to
out.
mention Sam Phillips, who
Sam
at Sun
Phillips.
Records there, produced those guys.
We were talking about Sam, Lee and I, when we were coming down to the studio, and we're surprised they didn't talk about him more. What a big force
Oh yeah.
in country music.
Oh, absolutely. Bobby tells stories.
We recorded there a lot, and the guy, he had a lot of ideas, and he could get a lot out of an artist in the studio. I don't know. He just able to get stuff out of an artist that you wouldn't think he could do.
Yeah. Lee, you got some good stories too.
Well, the story I know mostly, I kind of stumbled upon Mr. Phillips by accident. I was opening up a record shop. I had opened up a small record shop, and I was trying to find a place that sold records wholesale. So I went to Phillips' studio looking see if I could buy records directly from them. And he said, no, but I got a brother who you can buy from, Tom Phillips. And then he started talking to me about some of the things he had done, and he was looking for some new talent for his new record label, which was Holiday Inn Records. He got to telling me about the music business and how would I like to be a talent scout for him. Well, I thought he was joking, because, but we started talking that day, and he told me about how he did in the music business. He laughed about how many times he had gone broke.
How many more he's planning on?
For whatever reason, he took a liking to me and gave me an opportunity to look for some artists and become a talent scout for them, and told me what I needed to get started up to have a little demo studio. So we met on that basis, and I would go by and see him, and when he was there, and finally the group I took to him, he liked them and brought us in to do a demo. That's what kind of gave us a start in the music business. Throughout the years until he passed, I had pretty close relationship, just visiting, and we just talked. And we talk about a lot of things, and he told me about a story about Elvis, how Elvis came in the studio, and in fact, I got the machine back there that he did his first dub on.
That's pretty
And
neat.
I ended up with that machine. Took the machine to Nashville to donate to the Country Music Hall of Fame. I'm just going to donate it. The guy in the museum told me, he said, what do you say you got? I said, I've got the machine Elvis, I think, did his first recording on, first vinyl record. And he said, well, and where you from? And I told him. He said, well, you know what? I've got another Cadillac at home that Elvis gave to me. And he said, I hear stories like this every day. He said, get out of here with that stuff, man. And he said, why have you called out?
So you still got the machine,
I thought he was joking at first. I said, no, I've got it in my trunk of my car. He said, you need to go before I call somebody to have you escorted out. But anyway.
The sound that come out of that, it's still happening today. I mean, Bobby, they travel all over Europe all the time and reproduce that sound. One of the things that come out of that, I'm not positive that they were the ones that created it, but that old slap back delay sound. That's when you first started hearing it. And I noticed in the recordings later, it drifted into Nashville. So, they were listening to what they were doing too,
Nashville sound.
Nashville sound.
But Bob, we never heard the word rockabilly. We thought we were just rock and roll or country, and until they came up with it. We went to Europe and they got talking rockabilly, and we'd never heard the word before.
What are y'all talking about? Well,
Now
there's a
it'd
lot
be
of
called Americana, wouldn't it?
That's right.
there's a lot of other great artists that came out of this particular time. My friend Roy Orbison, Buddy Holly, Conway Twitty, Carl Perkins. Now Carl was a talented man.
Carl Perkins is probably the nicest person that was ever in the business.
Yep. Of course, there's so much on the show tonight that you have to just grab so quick. But Don and Phil Everly. I remember the music from them. Got to see them in concert, and they sounded just as good in concert as they did on the record.
The harmony was just
It
unbelievable.
did mention one of their songs was Claudette, which was written by Roy Orbison. And we traveled with Roy, and I remember Roy trying to sell that song when we were traveling. He was playing, that was his wife's name.
I'll be darned.
And he was playing, and he finally sold it to Everly Brothers.
Yeah. Now, somebody that we haven't talked about is, and of course he's an Arkansan too, Floyd Kramer.
Oh, yeah, played on so many records.
You
My
saw
goodness.
him in several pictures on those Patsy Cline cuts at Harold and Owen Bradley were recording.
Now, boy, there
Saw him.
You just mentioned two more people.
Yeah, gosh, they were kind of the architects, along with Chet Atkins, of the Nashville sound.
That's right.
Exactly.
They really created that.
Yeah, country music went to the city folks then.
Well, it went to the city folks, but it went smooth.
It did.
And
His last date has to be one of the all-time.
Instrumental.
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about Floyd Kramer, of course, we're talking about the Bradleys and that man. If it hadn't been for them, I don't know where we would have been.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't guess we ever will.
Well, same thing with Sam Phillips. Hadn't been for Sam Phillips, what would have happened, look at
Exactly. Those people were geniuses in their mind. Like Sam could hear a song and he knew if it was going to be a hit or
Right.
not.
Or when we were recording, he'd tell us right quick, that's not right. We did a song there one time called Find My Babe for Me, and he stops us and says, there's something wrong with this song. Well, we were leaving that day to go on tour, and a guy was standing back, Roy Orbison, was traveling with us, riding in our car, and Roy says, I think I can hit that song, Sam. He sang background on the song.
Wow.
High. And we did the song, and you can hear the song now, and he even released it on one of his albums.
Oh, yeah.
Mel Tillis. Boy, there was a heck of an artist.
Jim Reeves, the last place that he was seen alive was Batesville, Arkansas.
Right.
His
Was
plane
on
left
way
Batesville.
home when the plane
He actually had been up to visit with my grandpa, Wayne Raney.
And talking about plane crashes.
He was up there looking for land. They wanted to buy a place up there.
Well, talking about plane crashes, took four.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
country musicians out.
You know, Patsy Cline was just 30, and it really makes you wonder, you know, what else would she have done? Because you know she would have.
And bless her heart, she had been out for about 4 years.
Yeah, that car wreck.
Car wreck and all
Yeah.
the things.
I've always thought her song "Crazy," you know, it's performed by Patsy Cline, produced by Owen Bradley, Floyd Kramer on the piano, background by the Jordanaires, and written by Willie Nelson. And every one of those names I just mentioned are in the Country Music Hall of Fame. I've always felt that song may be the most pristine and perfect recording in country music history.
You know, some of the songs that they talked about tonight, like Honky Tonk Girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about Ray Charles, 1962, I Can't Stop Loving You. #1 and sold 20 million copies.
And written by country singer-songwriter Don Gibson.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray was an absolute genius for recording country music. A lot of people, when you think about it, you'll hear somebody, well, we're going to try something different, and it's usually because they're not having success where they're at. Ray Charles was a superstar in his field.
Yeah.
He didn't have to record country music.
Well, the man could sit down to a piano and make it talk.
That's
and
right.
You booked him, didn't you, Bob?
Yes, I did.
BJ's.
Yeah, he played at BJ's and
But
put on
if you-
one swell show.
If you notice a trend, it's not really a trend, and I think it's because there are a lot of artists who probably would sing more country had they not necessarily have an opportunity, but people don't always hear sometimes that another person might know the style or really going to do something different with it. But most people my age, and I'm 76, have always heard country. I grew up, my mother sang country is better than a lot of people did. She often asked me, why didn't I ever record her? I sound a lot better than a lot of people.
Say,
like
Mama, I got you in my head.
my
now."
mother, she sang perfect country to me and to other people as well. But you know, the thing I'm saying is a lot of entertainers don't sing country until they get well known. Not that they wouldn't want to, but at some point, like Lionel Richie,
Right.
he could sing anything he
Lionel
wanted
Richie,
to at this
yeah,
point.
he can sing anything
But,
and has.
Yes.
Matter of fact,
And,
I remember
so-
when Lionel Richie had a.
I probably would say it's a lot of other artists. I think Beyonce, if given a chance, she would do a good country album.
This show tonight, to me, was one of the best we've seen
It
thus
was a
far.
good one. And some of the other people they mentioned briefly, they were just so many good ones. And the Louvin brothers, they were so influential. One of the first real tight harmony duos.
Yep.
Well, of course, the Everly Brothers
Yep.
and who else was in that time that they mentioned tonight.
Yeah, it was just so good.
It was, and it takes all this music and the progression of all this music over the years. I think
Roger
it's been
Miller.
great.
There's another one.
Oh, gosh.
That's one of your old buddies, isn't it, Bob?
Who?
Roger Miller.
You bet you. Roger
Oh, yeah.
Miller's one of the nicest, sweetest men I've ever met.
Tell him about when he asked you where you was from and what he did.
Well, I think I did on one show, but we met, and of course we made friends, and like I say, he's just what a guy. But he said, Bob, where are you from? And I said, pretty close to Valdosta, Georgia. And he thought a minute, and he said, how much does it cost to Valdosta? How much for half of the way? Lord, I'm tired and I'm hungry and I ain't got no money. No, what would my mama say? And he had a bunch more to put with it, but you could just throw a line to him, and Roger had a song for him.
Yeah.
And they, told him all that crazy stuff you do, and it ain't ever going to do no good. Well, he proved them. He proved them wrong.
Yeah.
He was a really good fiddle player.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
All this time, I never saw him play the fiddle, and of course we never talked about him playing the fiddle, but I found that interesting tonight when I saw that. Remember, I turned to you there. I said, I didn't know
Yeah, he
that.
played with Minnie Pearl in the early days.
Yeah.
I believe he worked with Ray Price quite a bit.
Well, I imagine all those artists.
Playing fiddle.
I imagine all those artists worked together a lot.
They
don't
did. And, being there in Nashville, when they'd leave on tour, they'd need a bass player, they'd need a guitar player.
Right.
They
It was a closer community.
they'd borrow
then.
somebody else's, or,
It was basically a pickup band. They'd go wherever they needed.
Yeah, but they were all so good, they could just fall into it
Oh,
just
yeah.
seamlessly, you know.
I think that's what's made music that we love what it is.
Yeah.
And, it continues to grow. And I still believe, just like we said earlier in the programs, you've got that circle. And that circle always goes around.
Yeah.
Sure does.
And it always comes back to where we started. And we've said it before, we'll say it again today. You hear so much of the music that started all those years back, you still hear it today. As much as I hate it, it's time to close my notes, or the time flies. And this has been a show that we've really enjoyed talking about tonight. And we really appreciate you folks being there to watch us. All of us, country music is our life. It's what makes us sing, and I know that we have to do it in the shower, but that's okay. Y'all don't have to suffer through our singing, but you do love country music. Thank you for watching tonight. God be with you and bless you. Thank you a lot.